Good, good afternoon, everybody. Last but not least, we have the new normal. And who better to deliver the new normal than Michael Tartakovsky from NIAID at NIH. We look forward to his presentation. NIAID is at the center and the forefront of all that's been happening in the last 8 months. And we look forward to hearing his perspective on science in the new normal. But first, I want to introduce our moderator for this afternoon. His name is James Carter, and he brings more than 23 years of experience working in corporate IT security and consulting for the Fortune 500 and US government. At Logrum, he develops and maintains the company's security governance model and risk strategies, protects the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information assets. Prior to joining Logrum, James served as the Director of Security Informatics at Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, where he had oversight of the threat intelligence, incident response, security operations, and offensive security groups. James is after and frequent speaker at cybersecurity events and is a noted author of several cybersecurity publications. He is also an advisory board member for the University of Colorado, New Cloud Networks, and the Identity Defined Security Association. He holds a bachelor's degree in science in computer information systems and an MBA from the University of Minnesota's Carlson School of Management. Welcome, James.
Thanks, Joyce. Appreciate the introduction there and the kind words. Without further ado, I'll introduce our main speaker for this session, Mr. Michael Tartakovsky. He's the Chief Information Officer and Director of the Office of Cyber Infrastructure and Computational Biology for the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease as a part of the National Institute of Health. He provides strategic leadership and technical direction for the modern, secure, high-performance infrastructure that supports the NIAID biomedical research mission. So Mr. Tartakovsky.
Thank you, James. Appreciate the introduction, and it's a great pleasure to talk to you all today. I'm always concerned while I'm the last speaker on any event. This is very different. Nobody's hopefully rushing to catch the plane or get on the metro. So I was asked to talk about the new normal. So I'll try to do my best to define what it is. But before we go there, let me talk a little bit about the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, what we do. And the first slide that I'm showing to you here has a long history. This slide has been developed by Dr. Fauci many years ago, and every year the additional dot is being added here as the new infectious diseases are showing up on the globe. So we are not a newcomer to the threat of the infectious diseases, though everybody can tell experiencing this pandemic on very different level. The mission of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases is somewhat similar and at the same time different from the other institutes of the National Institute of Health. Each and every institute at the National Institute of Health has a mission of to maintain and grow the robust basic and applied research portfolio in the area of the expertise. The NIAID is the only institute among 27 institutes of the NIH who also has a second mandate to respond rapidly to emerging and re-emerging disease threats. And that's what we are doing right now, trying to lead the response along with many other agencies to this pandemic. So quick rollback, okay, going back to the January 6th, that's when the New York Times actually published something about the new mystery pneumonia-like illness in China. But the real work we probably can put on January 10. That's one of the few occasions when we actually know exact date when we started work on this. On January 10, the first genome sequence of the novel coronavirus was made publicly available, was deposited to the GenBank, and at that point, NIAID scientists start working on the vaccine and therapeutics. So it had an immediate impact on the institute, and of course, immediate impact on the information technology, on my shop, to support those new collaborations that had to be established literally on the moment's notice, with the other blood banks, medical centers, universities. There will be immediately, new studies, new research studies that were added to the existing cohorts, additional data review and data entry sites, and so on. So the topic of this, that what I was asked to talk about, is a new normal. I was thinking about this for some period of time. I looked even at the Oxford Dictionary, what is the definition of the normal? And I'm somewhat, thinking that perhaps we overdoing, calling this situation a new normal, at least from the technology perspective. For the last 40 plus years, almost 50 years, technology been pushing the boundaries of normalcy, and the current situation is somewhat perhaps accelerated the need to change and be even more disruptive. But when I think these days about what is the mission of the modern IT organization, I kind of trying to define it as a three main pillars. We need to provide technology to advance, enable, and support scientific research. So, and there are big differences in what the support versus an advancement is. Many organizations, almost everybody here, is in the supporting role by providing the critical infrastructure, security, data centers, and other type of the operations to their business community. Enablement, by enablement, I usually refer to the deployment as well as the development of the software tools, workflows to support that, support that mission of the organization. As an advancement, I usually define that integration of the technology into the mission of the organization. It's sometimes easy for me to talk about this because in the 21st century, the computation is actually became a laboratory tool, the same way as the microscope or any other type of the medical and medical instruments. So, if we're going to talk about this new normal, or what the majority was to define as the new normal, there are a few things that comes to mind, that what to do to succeed there. So I'll try to spend a few minutes on each of these 5 bullets to talk about the connectivity, reliable and secure remote access, how we need to speed up our digital transformation, trust and collaboration, as well as address our staff. Everything, of course, in the framework of the security, that is no conversation is complete these days without talking about security. So this screen, I don't know how many of you actually saw that, but this is one of the things that define the new normal for us. And this is one of the things that we are really asking industry to address. We all understand that we never were, the infrastructure never developed to support that type of the massive telework that we finding ourselves right now. However, the access to the reliable, fast speed, and cheap internet is a critical requirement for surviving and being productive in this new normal environment. And way too many phone calls that are coming to our help desk are related to the connectivity from the internet service providers, especially people who live in the cities, especially people who live in the apartment buildings or condo buildings. They are getting probably the worst signal you can imagine. This needs to be solved. Reliable and secure methods of the remote access. I do not want to contribute to a continuing discussion of what the reliable and secure method of remote access is preferable. Organizations like to deploy both VPN as well as the virtual desktop infrastructures. They both have preferences, but the keyword here, this remote access need to be reliable and need to be secure. The topic that near and dear for my heart, and the thing that I was driving through my entire 25-year career at the National Institute of Health, is a digital transformation. In order to be able to survive in this new normal, we need to make sure that our paper-based workflows do not work in this situation, and they must be replaced with the digital alternatives. Those digital alternatives exist. We just need to speed up the development and delivery of these digital alternatives to our user community. So there are a few other things that perhaps we need to address, and again, as well as we're pushing the boundaries of what needs to be done and how we can enable that new normal. I would like to show you a quick video. I'll pause it for a second to explain it. So if you're watching this video, you can see a picture of Dr. Fauci using the virtual reality glasses to examine the HIV proteins. But that's not the main point of the picture of the video that I'm showing you. If you take a look at the screen here, you see the picture of the person. This is one of my computational biologists, Dr. Mike Dolan, who is actually working with Dr. Fauci in the virtual reality, collaborating with him on the protein structure that they watching. The implementation of the tools like this as a virtual reality, as augmented reality, is one of the things that perhaps will help organizations to be more productive in this new normal. And virtual reality, again, as you can see from all of these pictures, you can see Bill Gates during his tour of the NIH Vaccine Research Center. You can see Deputy Secretary of the HHS, Hargan, here in our virtual reality lab. This type of tools will give employees the enormous power. When I'm thinking about new normal, it's about collaboration. This slide that I'm displaying to you have been in my presentations since 2015, for 5 years. For 5 years, when we were talking about scientific collaborations, we were defining it as a new normal for a long period of time. And it's a truth here. Infectious diseases research requires global collaboration. And this pandemic is more than ever underline the need for the global collaboration to solve this problem. In order to collaborate at scale, at speed, and very importantly, with the trust, we need a new methods of the identification, or in the technology terms, authentication of the people. We need to understand what are they, who are they. So We are not using the outdated identification as a username and password, but rather dealing with the modern physical credentials, understanding how people were logging in, what kind of multi-factor authentication they have, how they actually were identified before issuing those credentials, and so on. This is a very important thing for the academia. The trust federations in academia, like United States in common, are extremely important to the success of the scientific missions. And the systems that we are building need to support those federated identity, as well as we need the collaboration of the research institutions to release identifying attributes to the service provider to enable our science and the NIH services. But the issue is becoming bigger these days, because challenge today is that it's not just the scientists in research universities who are involved and who need to collaborate. In many cases, we need to collaborate with the pharmaceutical industry these days more than ever. We need to collaborate with the clinical research organizations. We need to collaborate with the private sector. So having that federated credentials and promoting the use of the Trust Federation is one of the critical things that I see in this so-called new normal. We cannot succeed without training our employees. This slide was presented by the NIH CIO, Andrea Norris, at one of the events last week. I took that slide from her. It's not only about the numbers, it's not only about the video conferencing. It's a lot of things that we need to do in order to train our people how to work in this reality, in this new reality. It is the big problem, however, the infrastructure somewhat is obsolete. A lot of computers that organizations still issuing to the staff are desktops, not the laptops, and that need to change very quickly. While the laptop alone are not going to solve all the problems as endpoint security or network access problems, but it should be the first step in facilitating the remote work in this new normal environment. We need to teach our staff and our employees how to collaborate in this new environment, where a lot of productive things, which I personally enjoyed, like 2 minutes before the meeting and 5 minutes after the meeting, while you're in the hallway, you can freely exchange ideas with people. They are changing, and in-person meetings and real-time interactions are very, very different these days. And of course, no conversation this day can be completed without talking about the cybersecurity and how it can be applied. And this is the kind of roadmap for my organization, which is showing some of the capabilities that we need, and we've been working on them for quite a long time. But security monitoring capabilities these days probably need to change to reflect an operating environment where the network traffic patterns, data and system access vectors changed quite significantly due to this increase in the remote operations. So the way how we respond to the security events also need to change. So I will stop at this point. Thank you for listening, and we'll be happy to answer questions that you will have. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, that was a very insightful presentation. I'm a little jealous of your relationships with Dr. Fauci and Bill Gates and all the celebrities that you had in your slide deck. I'll open, you know, I really want to ask a question about you. You know, you've been at the NIAID for, you know, some time now. You know, we joked around at the beginning that while I have a all security background from my 23 years of being just in that, you were a software engineer. So how'd you go from a software engineer to enabling computational biology?
So, great question. Thank you, James. It's a long story, but again, I started at NIH 25 years ago, and that was kind of early days of the software development. There were not a lot of off-the-shelf packages to deploy. So a lot of things that we were doing were developing the custom software. But back in the day, when we start looking where science is going, we kind of look and understood at the very, very early stages that science becoming increasingly computational and depending on that computation as a new tool. That was back in 2004 when I was creating the first bioinformatics and computational biosciences branch in the NIAID. At that time was called Office of Technology Information Systems. And that's how it all started. We understood early, again, that the role of the computation gonna change. The computation, I believe I mentioned in the presentation, is now a laboratory tool, and that's how it needs to be treated.
That's awesome. Second question I've got here is, you know, obviously, like we talked about earlier, you've been in the NIH for some period of time now. You've been in the areas of technology. Over that time frame, I'm sure you've seen the impacts of technology. You showed the virtual reality headsets and things like that, but the impact of technology supporting that computational biology mission. What are some of the things that are highlights for you over those years, or that you're most proud of as it relates to technology and the mission you're enabling?
So a lot of things, and again, one of the things that I am extremely proud is the number of the scientific papers that are written or co-authored by my staff, you know, that advance the overall body of science. But again, giving the scientists the platform to develop to advance the body of knowledge, to better understand and quickly model the biological process. This is what is very exciting for me personally. However, one more thing that I would like to mention is just not only about this. A few years ago, more than a few years ago, about 5-7 years ago, we at NIAID developed the first three-dimensional printing exchange, 3D print exchange. It became very popular, but its primary role was to share the blueprints for the 3D print with the user community. During this crisis, coronavirus crisis, we successfully, in partnership with the FDA, VA, and nonprofit organization America Makes, used that platform to share the blueprints for the personal protective equipment. Kind of trying to respond to the shortages in the supply chain that we all experience. And I'm extremely proud, you know, of the use of these tools were developed originally to support science, being able to support the first responders during this emergency.
Awesome. Sort of a personal question, actually, a little bit. I've been involved in the contact tracing apps for Google and Apple and a few others. Do you guys get actively involved in that? So I know all the states are rolling it out in partnership with the National Institute of Health. What's been in your involvement in some of those, cutting edge technologies that are being leveraged to be able to help with the pandemic?
No, we were not involved with the contact tracing, though I met with the industry a few times to see them and provide the recommendations. But this is more along the lines of the Center for Disease Control, and that's what usually their area of expertise, not mine.
Perfect. We talked about digital transformation earlier in your presentation. I'm a big zero trust architecture guy, and so I've seen that be advanced significantly since the pandemic and the whole remote workforce. Have you seen more challenges or more opportunities with that digital transformation and with modernizing the workforce because of the pandemic?
I am a big zero trust supporter myself.
Ooh.
Yes, yes. But this is the thing that need to be understood. The scientific research, and I think I addressed this during the presentation, by nature is a collaborative enterprise. Therefore, we need to be very careful in implementing what type of the security approaches we are giving our community. We need to be very careful to provide secure environment to our researchers, but at the same time, not to bring the scientific research and scientific research to an abrupt stop. So balancing those things is not an easy task, but this is what we're trying to achieve.
Awesome. We have seen across the security industry that obviously the attackers have adjusted their tactics a bit. That seems like they're leveraging the same sort of attacks and exploits and paths, but they're just putting it under the wrapper of the pandemic so that way it can trick users into doing the same things they've always been doing. Is that what you all are seeing as well, or are you guys seeing any unique changes within the attacker side based on the pandemic?
Social engineering always been and probably will remain the main vector of the attack. As I said again, the scientific enterprise is a collaborative enterprise. So it's kind of not strange for the researcher to receive an email from somebody whom he or she doesn't know, but offering, to, or asking for some kind of collaboration, proposing it, and then click on the malicious link that will take that researcher to some not so good place, let me put it this way. So yes, I believe that social engineering is and will continue to be the main vector of the attack. It's the most difficult thing to prevent. However, we're spending a lot of time teaching the people how to recognize phishing emails, how to react on them. So hopefully they're listening these days and more vigilant than ever.
Yeah, I hope so as well for both our sakes. So, one of the, obviously with the folks moving remote to be more telework, we talked about the video conferencing and how work is evolving now. One of the other things too that a lot of companies had to adjust to was, basically having this employee at their home without the, quote unquote protections of the business infrastructure and things like that. So how do you protect that home teleworker and subsequently the business and making sure that they can operate today?
It's not an easy task these days. And again, I kind of don't like to say it, but we perfected the remote support this day as well as the contactless delivery of the equipment. It also goes to the question that I posed in my presentation, how we want to continue that remote access. I don't think we have time to start a discussion on the VPN versus VDI, but this is something that definitely needs to be considered. Again, it all depends on the organization and what level of security they want to implement. Will they allow the information to leave their perimeter, or they will be able to control the information inside the perimeter using VDI? That's everybody have to, every organization need to answer for themselves. From our perspective, we were somewhat lucky that we invested into the good security tools a couple years ago. So we have a good control over the user laptops. To tell you the truth, I am a little bit more concerned about return to work some days, because there are a lot of abandoned desktops that probably sitting offline for quite a while. And once they will start connecting to the internet, we may see quite a few vulnerabilities that will take some time to fix.
Yeah, in addition to all the patches that are going to be pushed as soon as those things come online, and what that
Correct.
might cause as well. So, what recommendations, obviously, I'm on the commercial sector, but, you being in part of the government, what recommendations do you have to your fellow government CIOs and cybersecurity professionals?
Oh, that's a tough one. Okay, so what recommendations? Think about the mission of the organization. Try to align yourself with the mission. We've been successfully supporting organizations for a long time, but I think it is a good time to make a step further and think how we can advance the mission of the organization. We've been disruptors for quite a while. Now it's time for us to see how it feels to be disrupted by some other events other than technology. To the security professionals, guys, we are relying on you. We are pushing the boundaries. We need to collaborate in order to maintain our businesses, in order to maintain our research, scientific research. It's always a delicate balance between the security and productivity. So please help us secure, but do not impact the productivity of the organization.
Which is, very familiar position for us. So I think, business obviously comes first. Without the business, there is no need to secure anything. So you have to, work in tandem, but the operation of the business is the most important. Sort of maybe a hot question for you here. Obviously, we have our current geopolitical landscape and other barriers that, you had talked about, cooperation and collaboration and trust with foreign countries, especially as we, look to try to, come out with a vaccine for COVID. How do you remove those barriers, and how do you actually collaborate and trust, within the geopolitical barriers, and does that cause a barrier? And if so, how do you remove it, and how do you work around it?
That's where the academic trust federations are coming to play a huge role. I don't know, James, how familiar are you with the NIH in Common or the Internet 2 and associated with federations that around the world? I had the pleasure to do an opening keynote a few days ago at the Internet 2 Technology Extra. And this is one of the things that we've been asking and working closely with Internet 2. We need to trust that federation. They need to release the attributes to us to know how people been authenticated by their organizations, what type of what type of the identity they had. Was it again multi-factor or single-factor authentication? Things like this. That's the most important thing for us these days.
And, obviously with your role and how important that is in today's day and age, how can the industry best engage with you all and help with the collaboration, help forward the mission? How can we engage with you on that?
We need support of the industry. It's absolutely true. We need a good set of tools. We need to tools that can be deployed very quickly, scale up very quickly. So you can use the same engagement methods that industry always used. We're always open to collaboration with the industry. We wouldn't be able to achieve anything without your support and the tools that industry is developing and providing to us. Thank you.
Awesome. And I've got one final question. I see Joyce is on now, but and me being my grad was University of Minnesota, but my undergrad actually most of it was at Indiana University, so I'm familiar with Internet 2 quite a bit. They're a big player there. What's the last, for last question, what piece of advice, it could be anything, it could be a tip, would you give out to the folks that are watching this today?
Yeah, folks, what?
For the people that are watching this today.
Stay calm, do your work, be productive.
Great advice. Joyce, I think that's all I've got for questions. Mike, thank you so much. It's very informative. I love the conversation, and I really love the work that you guys do. So thank you very much.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Joyce.
And thank the both of you. We appreciate this. We ended up this 2-day, half-day sessions with a real bang. Thank you very much, Mike, for providing us with that insightful information about NIAID. And James, thank you very much for your time in putting together the questions and participating in our annual fall briefing. Now we are coming to the end of our session. We are going to go to our final remarks, and then we will turn you loose and let you go and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so very much, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of minutes. Bye.